Hey y'all, I am cutting my skirt pattern and working on making it fit because unfortunately commercial patterns seem to think that a size 20 to 22 is a ridiculously narrow waist of 34 to 37 inches. And that all people of plus size height, plus size weight, have disastrously long legs. Never mind, I'm exactly 5 feet tall and have a tiny, short inseam of a little over 2 feet. So I'm sitting here cutting the tissue to fit my tiny little legs, because that is pretty much 10 inches all the way around on the skirt. That's 5 inches from either half, because the skirt is too long for my short, stubby little legs. And since commercial marketers have decided that plus size clothing needs to cost upwards of $70 to $80 to get in the comfort that I enjoy wearing, I am going to sew my own vintage skirt. And I gotta say, the fabric wasn't nearly as expensive as buying the skirt pre-made. So in the case of this little beastie, the pattern was $14, but I think I had a coupon. And the fabric was on clearance because it was holiday fabric. It is a orange gingham, and if it works, I'm also going to make it out of a purple gingham and have some fun with it. So that's my funness for tonight. Since the school year is over, I've been working on this since I finished everything out. And I'm hoping that this will be enough shortness that you can't see it, but it will no longer touch the tops of my feet, because that was ridiculously too long. And the tissue I fold back up because I got to lay out the gingham and measure it out and make sure everything still lines up and works, so that I can get the fabric, because the next step has to be the sewing. And this has been a deep exploration for me, because before this, the most intricate thing I had ever sewn, this is my lovely, lovely gingham. It is a pretty, pretty orange. It's actually a very pumpkin-y orange. Let me turn off the extra light so you can see the color better. And I bought, I hope is enough yardage to make it work. I do need to clean up a bit of my hot mess here. Laying out paper and measuring gave me a lot of, well, hot messery to clean up, in terms of yardsticks and measurements and all of that other fun stuff that tends to happen when one is modifying your patterns. Because again, for some reason, the garment industry, be they pre-made or not, has decided that people of my size and weight don't exist in the combination that I exist in. For anybody who hasn't seen a full body image of me, I have an extremely short torso for being 5 feet tall, and proportionally larger legs. So I have a much larger inseam than someone of my height usually would, but at the same time, I have a much smaller, narrower torso. So much so that I have to buy everything in petite, and even then the petite still can be too long, because for some reason the garment industry has decided that petite women, their standard inseam is around 30 inches. So I usually have to buy a petite called extra short wherever I can find it. And extra short has an exactly 28-inch inseam. But even then, we run into a bigger problem. Because the garment industry, which includes pre-made patterns, has decided that they are not going to have a sizing standard. So every single company has decided that it has its own idea of what a particular dress size is. That means that, I'll give you an example here because I actually have these. I have several other patterns. So I have this one from this basic company called Yes It's Easy. It's sold at Joann's. Their idea of an extra large, which for the record is usually a fit that I can get into, for a waist in an extra large, you would have a 34 to 37 inch waist. I want to let that sit in. A 34 to 37 inch waist. Your bust would be a 42 to 44. Here's where this is a problem. By their standards, if I were to make one of their tops, I would need to go down to a large because I'm between a 39 and a 41. Here's the problem with that. This is for pajamas, which are supposed to run a little longer. Okay? They're supposed to be a little larger. That means that everybody who wears these sizes should probably go up a size. At the same time, if we look here, this company says that your size for a double X waist is a 39 to a 41. For the record, a double X waist is usually pushing a 20 to a 22. A garment pre-made industry size technically is a 42-inch waist for a 20 to 22. This is unique really only to the US. And so I have this massive amount of gingham here. And what you have to do is the next step is you lay your fabric out and you drape your patterns over it. So that nicely folded up pattern actually has to come back out now that it's cut. And I cut it with a little bit of wiggle room simply because I needed the extra space. I am not the best cutter, as it were, and wanted to make sure that I had enough room because I also have to take out a waistband belt to go at the top. So the pattern isn't entirely complete. But if you look, now that I have made it short person friendly, I have enough bunched up fabric. Yes, my poor sewing machine is now tucked at the corner. Now that I have made it... Oops, sorry about that. We glitched. Now that I've made it short person friendly, I have much more room to work. Because the other thing that you have to fit across this pattern is this waist belt. And fashionably speaking, I kind of want it to be diagonal to go along with the pattern, which means the other half of the skirt has to fit somewhere in here. So that's something that I have to work on. But I gotta lay this out. So y'all are gonna have to wait a minute. Alright. Pin cushion. So what I'm doing is I'm actually pinning the paper down. Only so I can move the fabric around to see if I can get all the pieces pinned in the first place. So when my grandmother was sewing, she was one of those people that I would call craftily blessed. She could do this, and she could tell if a pattern was right or not pretty quick. She could tell if a pattern was going to fit somebody pretty quick. Her habit of doing it, though, is a little bit different. If I had a mannequin of myself, which I do want to make, that is a goal this summer, is to make a mannequin out of myself. And there's a lot of guides on how to do that. Just look up duct tape body form, I believe, or duct tape dress form is the correct nomenclature. And you see that there are ways to pin it on to make sure it fits. So what I'm doing is I'm walking the pattern around on the fabric, and I'm basically making sure that it all stays while I make sure that the whole thing's going to fit. Because if it's not, I am in for a whole world of headache. Because that means I didn't buy enough, and I'm going to have to go buy a fabric that will be enough. And that is not an easy thing to do when you live on a teacher budget. You pretty much at that point have to at that point wait for good coupons to come out. And I buy my fabric from Joann's. I'm not all that snooty. I know there are a few people on the internet who beat you. You buy your fabric from Joann's. Why would you buy from them? Well, honey, teacher budget. We'll just call it that. For those of you who don't know a teacher or may not be familiar, we may have been labeled heroes for distance teaching, but pretty much anytime there's a budget cut, we're some of the first people to face job loss, things like that. And in the case of my job as a teacher, you know, it gets a little bit more complicated because you are factoring in someone who is relatively new in their job. I mean, I've been teaching in various ways for a long time, but the concept of being a teacher is a little bit more complicated at this point because of everything that's going on. It always appears to me that the first jobs on the chopping block are ones that are always declared important. So here you have this whole COVID-19 bullpucky. And now that everything is settling down somewhat, the first thing states are looking to do when they cut their budget is ask themselves, how much can we cut from education? Which is not, in my opinion, okay. It is a sign that while they think we are a vital service, they want us more and more every year to do more with less. And so, instead of allocating the money where it really should go, we have several people who seem to think that their pocketbooks are a fair bit more important. So, as an example, and this is Googleable, you can look this up, billionaires actually made quite a bit of money during this COVID crisis, be it Jeff Bezos or anyone else. So, this isn't a matter of we don't have the money. This is a matter of they've chosen to allocate the money where they think it belongs, which in this case is their pocketbooks. There are politicians who make six figures, have for years, have never worked a true job in 20 plus years, who are now saying that everybody else needs to do without so they don't have to take a pay cut. You wanted to prove to teachers how truly appreciated they are. Maybe give us more funding. Instead of cutting funding from our classrooms because of this COVID bullpucky, why don't you cut your own paycheck? At least then, you'd be cutting it from yourselves and giving it to the people that you work for, the taxpayers. Well, sort of. You'd be giving it to the children of the people you work for. And that is, in my opinion, a fair bit more important. Now, this downward edge right here, next to my pincushion, is a little bit wider because, again, I don't cut in a straight line, so I'm not as worried about the edging as I normally should be. I don't cut very straight with scissors. They don't like me. So, I'm not too worried as long as I pin it on the inside like I've done on the top. It'll be alright. So why is a school teacher talking about politics on Instagram while sewing a dress? Well, specifically a skirt. Well, the answer lies in the fact that this is about the only time I talk about these things and not feel like I'm about to step on somebody's toes and hurt their fifis. Why does somebody's fifis getting hurt matter to me? Well, see, teaching is still a politics game. It's a crap politics game, but it's a politics game. And when you are a new teacher, even in a state where the teachers union has a lot of teeth, tick off the wrong people, you're in trouble. So, And it's not my want to be terminated, but it's my want to inform of the goings-on. It's interesting how the governor of my state appears to have been backed by the teachers union, and yet the first place he wants to budget cut from is the very people who supported him during his run for governor. Why does that bother me, and why is it any of your business, great listener? Well, it's your business because it's your money. It's your money. How's it your money? Well, your taxes pay state senate salaries. So while they get to sit fat and happy on massive six-figure budgets and golden parachutes, they want to gut public education. Yeah, but public education is weak sauce. Listen. You want education to be better? Give us something to work with. And I don't mean students. I mean people. Not having six-figure incomes, whilst teachers in some parts of this wonderful state are expected to subsist on their income and no money for furnishing their classroom with supplies, and our supply budgets being cut for the sake of everybody has to give a little. Oh, I'm sorry, where are these people giving that are making six figures? No, seriously. Where are these people giving that are making six figures? You are guaranteed a retirement of six figures. Why are you earning $200,000+ for retirement for a year, sitting in a fancy office rubbing elbows with people? So I'm making my own skirt because it's cheaper than buying plus size clothing, and it's easier than spending all my money at a gym being told I can lose weight if I just eat X, Y, and Z. Well, honey, one, your gym membership is a lot of money out of my budget each month that I could be spending on furnishing things for my classroom, because whoever you voted for has decided that we teachers have to give a little bit because of COVID. Never mind, we teachers have been giving a little bit for 40+ years, and never have we got any back. You know, State Lotto was supposed to give us a bunch of crap, and I don't think I know of a time where I can remember anything with a sticker slapped on it saying it had been paid for by the State Lotto since I was in school. And I'm in my 30s. I think the last time I saw a paid for by the California State Lotto, I was in elementary school. And I can hear it now. Oh, you're not that old. You're not that old. Honey, please. I may not be that old, but I still lived. And plenty of people should remember when the lotto used to pay for crap. And the fact that people don't, or in this case, won't, remember or acknowledge or really seem to even care bothers me. And it's something that I've said before and I'll say again. The investing in our future is the problem, while the lack of investing in our future is the problem.
It's not uncommon for militiamen first to have military experience. Oftentimes they resent the structure and they get discharged.
It's disheartening to think that people no longer see a basic education for what it is. It's an investment. And I don't mean an investment for college. It's an investment for society's future. And the fact that people still, to this day, think that because it's not their kid, it's not their investment, kind of bothers me. This mentality of I got mine, now you get yours, is precisely how we got here today. How do I know this? Well, you see, your girl got her master's in criminal justice. And believe it or not, historically speaking, education and law actually go well hand in hand. You see a rise in crime wherever you see a drop in public education. You also see a rise in poverty wherever you see a systematic devaluing of education. If you look at cultures such as, well, I wouldn't really go with them too much, but a lot of Southeast Asian cultures and a lot of Asian cultures highly value education. And while they do still have high cases of poverty, their income ratio between the haves and the have-nots is not as substantially wide as what you see in the U.S. And you also tend to see true leadership from the billionaires. Although I don't even know if Japan actually has billionaires. So I'll point that one out. Now, I'm by no means an economics expert. But the other thing that Japan tends to have in common is they treat education for what it is. As a fundamental investment in the future of society. And it is a responsibility to be heralded by everybody. That means that budget cuts generally don't target education until they have absolutely no choice. That also means that you have more choices in education. Now, Japan has a highly competitive society as well, so they do competitions to get into high schools at some points. But you're talking about a country that believes that kindergarten through 4th grade isn't a time to teach a lot of things to children. It is a time to teach children how to be human, how to function in society, how to be a part of society. Children are taught how to socialize, that they are responsible for everything around them that they can influence. You don't have much in the way of littering in countries such as Japan because of that idea. They have a very Vulcan-esque mentality when it comes to society. Well, that's not perfect. It's a far better cry than what we have here in the U.S. The amount of children who live in poverty versus the amount of people who live in wealth is so dramatic in the U.S. We have children who go hungry without schools, and yet schools are the first things we cut. And if we fight back about that, then they threaten to cut safety nets or entitlements, as certain conservatives like to call them. And they're not entitlements. We pay taxes for them. Well, let me rephrase that. Unless you make over a certain amount, you pay taxes for it. So, this ideal that we have now is an I got mine, you get yours mentality. Why is this bad? Well, it violates the fundamentals of human nature. If you watch children interact, up until, barring a few odd ducks, who usually later go on to develop other issues, if you watch children until they're around 4 or 5, most children are innately empathetic. They will want to help their classmates. They will... Sorry about that. They will desire to include everybody. There's a reason why liberals, and I use that in a good sense because, hello, I am one. There's a reason why liberals say that racism isn't born, it's taught. Because selfishness, in the context of society, isn't natural. Society doesn't survive if there isn't some amount of give and take. And unfortunately, you can actually trace this, especially when you start seeing for-profit prisons pop up. A bunch of people figured out that if they pretend to be hat-holding, we're just, businessmen folk, that just want to make sure they've got enough to go around. Once the private for-profit prison sector came into existence in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, you see a huge increase in arrests, a huge leap in crime, and you see one of the single most heartbreaking things that you ever see, a systematic defunding of anything to do with public education. So then you have programs like home ec, automotive, technologies, that kind of stuff, being taken down. So, what's this got to do with sewing? Well, you see, my grandmother is what we would call a baby boomer. Home ec was a required course for her in the 60s. In the early 60s when she typically graduated. But if you look, I have successfully pinned out the skirt. Now, I have to cut out the beast. And I'm not going to be live for that because I tend to curse like a sailor out of frustration. And I talk to my projects, and people tend not to like that and think it's weird. Bottom line is, folks, society has gone to a selfish point, and supposed liberals are the people who realize that it can't go the way that it's going. The consumer market that we have developed, this token exchange economy, doesn't work anymore. Not so long as we keep things the way that they're going. And this is a call out for a few things. One of them is the fact that people are trying to point out that people don't want to go back to work because they're making more on unemployment. Why is the problem that they're making more on unemployment? Why isn't the problem that the jobs aren't paying enough? Why is it that schools and public safety are the first things cut whenever budget crises arise? Why is it always those of us who work in what we would consider public service? Because I don't consider politicians public service. You can't be public service when 90% of your money comes from businesses that make more than I'll ever see in my life. Why is it that I can walk around in my neighborhood wearing a black shirt and a hoodie and long pants, but my neighbor 3 doors down has to watch her children because of the color of their skin? Why is it my black neighbor kid purposely crosses the street in the morning when I am leaving for work when I can walk down the road unimpeded and nobody looks at me funny? Why is it we have children who have to go hungry because you want to cut an entitlement that is something that we pay for with taxes? And my last rant, which is what I originally was going to stay focused on, but I never can because apparently I'm an evil SJW. Honey, please. I'm a physically into it SJW. Okay. Why is it that the fashion world has decided that a 37-inch waist is plus size when y'all ever seen somebody with a 37-inch waist? They tiny. They tiny. I am 10 inches bigger than that. They tiny. Y'all are nuts. Alright, y'all. I'm going to cut this out and I'll show you what it looks like afterwards. But I'm not doing that on camera because I try to keep it PC. I don't want to be cussing up a storm on the internet. Because not cool. Okay? I'll see y'all later. I'll let you know how it goes. Y'all have a good one.